The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. More than 7 million people in Canada are older than 64. That's just shy of 20% of us. I'm one of those people. The issues all seniors face include, but are not limited to, financial security, healthcare, and an end to ageism. Rudy Buttignol, the president of the Canadian Association of Retired Persons, or CARP, represents associations across the country advocating with all levels of government on behalf of 330,000 members. According to Buttignol, the greatest obstacle to achieving better societal outcomes for seniors is overcoming ageism. There is a generally held belief that as you age, your body and mind are going to fall apart, you're going to become grumpy and lonely, and you're going to get sick. Buttignol says that's simply not true. They are, those assumptions, he says, the basis, however, of bias that is directed at seniors. Those attitudes towards seniors impact so many other aspects of their lives. It's why families worry that seniors can't remain in their homes. It affects the way healthcare providers treat senior patients. In other words, it's discrimination. Since 1983, CARP has been working to combat stereotypes about seniors. The organization also advocates for tax policy changes that will support home care, reframing the concept of retirement residence from institutions to homes. I invited Rudy Buttignol to join me for a conversation that matters about aging well and why we need to respect our elders. Rudy, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Ageism is such an interesting element of the way that people who are in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, maybe even into their, the next century, get treated and dismissed.
It's part of our culture, and I think North American culture is particularly guilty of it. I do a lot of work in Asia, for instance, and the attitudes towards elders is completely different. You have an elder steps into a room and people pay deference to that individual, knowing that they're, a senior citizen, that they have exalted status, that they know stuff. And in North America, we have this youth culture that the minute you're no longer, formally in the workplace, you're no longer used to of use to society in terms of producing anything, you're kind of shunted aside. And I think that attitude infuses everything in terms of how we deal with people once they get into those senior years.
Stephanie Cadieux, who is the accessibility ambassador in Canada, says our society is around ableism. And we look at people and go, oh, if you're not quite like me, well, then maybe you don't deserve the same kind of access to opportunity. But are we not then cutting out a tremendous amount of experience, insight, knowledge, and members of the workforce that can contribute in so many other ways?
Yes, in fact, even more so now that we've transitioned from, the industrial age to the knowledge age, where all of a sudden it's it's what you've maintained in your brain, is the knowledge you've built up that can be transferred from mentorship and internships and the like, and to let people go or force them out of the workplace when they have this tremendous amount of knowledge is this waste, that we need those people to stay in the workplace if that's what they want to do. Not everybody wants to work, but as the cost of living goes up, a lot of people are forced to work, and they have a tremendous amount of value to a productive society.
One of my favorite pieces that was written about aging came from Pablo Casals. It was called A Salute to Life. And he talked about the fact that he does not feel old at the time, and he was 92, does not feel old in the normal way, because every day he was still discovering elements of the music that he was playing or anything else that were new, exciting, and enriching. So what is it that we need to be able to do to demonstrate the people, to those who are looking at somebody who's older, just because somebody isn't in the workforce the way that maybe you are, doesn't mean that they're not contributing in ways that have great value.
There's an interesting thought around the word retirement. you know.
Yes.
And in fact, even our organization kind of wanted to stay away from the word retirement because it meant like, well, that's it, you're done.
Right.
And for almost everyone, what retirement means in our society is I'm retired from that thing I used to have to do to pay the bills, to pay the mortgage, to raise the family. I'm not retired from life. And in fact, so people like Pablo Casals, the brilliant musician, what's the secret to long life and a good life is staying engaged, mentally and physically engaged in the process. And we need to remember that with seniors to like, these people are not ready for the rocking chair necessarily. More and more, we're living longer, healthier lives. We are capable of doing more. Not that everybody wants to or can, but many more people can. And so staying engaged is really important, and removing the barriers to people staying engaged. For instance, remember when retirement was mandatory at 65? Well, CARP was one of the advocates that helped abolish that rule, saying a lot of people enjoy work and they want to work. So let's make sure that they can.
The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. You know, one of the perceptions, of course, is that as people age, you start to lose your mental capacity. And there's this idea and also fear that I might slide into dementia or worse, Alzheimer's. But the stats really don't back that up, do they?
No, look, eventually we're all going to die. You know?
This is true.
But the point is that we age differently, depending on genetics, on your good luck, and on the kind of life you've led. But most people can remain active for a really long time. Individually, some people succumb to disease earlier than others, but it's really looking at the individual and what they're capable of and what is their state of health. And a lot of nowadays, people well beyond 65 are still fully engaged. And so it's not, you have to look at the individual, not just this group of this cohort that you decide is useless.
Well, I was looking at the stats, and it says the number of people who are experiencing dementia as they age is actually decreasing on a percentage of population. So it's not a foregone conclusion that as you age, you're going to start to lose that capacity. In fact, all suggestions are that your brain remains vital and active so long as you continue to use it.
That's the key, staying engaged. It's, for instance, why hearing aids are so important, that some people, as they age and their hearing gets affected, it degrades from a very noisy environment. It's getting hearing aids turns out to be really, really important, not just for the benefit of your partner and your friends, but also to stay engaged yourself, because, we've seen where people that lose their hearing or have diminished hearing and don't get help start to disengage.
Yes.
And that's when the trouble comes.
One of the other vital components, of course, is staying physically active. Dr. Ken Rockwood at Dalhousie University in Halifax has gone and created the frailty scale. And he says the most important thing that you have to do is stay off that frailty scale. But to your point about winding up there and about hearing, you need to be socially engaged. Otherwise, you don't motivate yourself the same way to get out there and do the things that are going to keep you vital.
I agree totally. I still play hockey twice a week, and it's pretty high-paced. It's a lot of fun. At least I think it's high-paced by my standards. I know that when they take videos, it looks like slow motion, but it's not just the physical activity of playing hockey. It's twice a week. I look forward to getting together with the guys, and there's all the hubbub in the dressing room and the kidding and everything. And it's the camaraderie. It's the social aspect that really becomes important. And that's what I think keeps people healthy, and being socially engaged, being with it, not starting to retreat. And of course, physical activity is really important as well. We have to also stay off that couch.
Yes. So one of the other misconceptions is that, as you get older, everybody winds up in a facility, assisted living facility. Once again, the statistics do not back that up, but the tax laws and the things that we need to have in place so that people can stay at home don't necessarily help us, especially when it comes to our own family members coming and being part of our network of help.
We have this very institutional mindset, that you can, as soon as you can't stay home, we're going to put you in an institution. Somebody else will look after you. Staying at home is probably the overwhelming preference of everyone. They want to stay at home as long as possible, to the end as if possible. And the best way to do that is to keep people healthy and to make sure that they have the needs and the supports that they need. And sometimes that can just be a relative that can spend a few hours every day or check in every day, or even a neighbor. And yet we don't incentivize that system. We either go from you stay at home on your own, on your own steam, and if not, you go into an institution. And in terms of people's well-being, I've experienced with my mother, is the minute they go into an institution, they lose interest in life. Even, no matter how good that institution is, it's not home. There's a huge loss. So creating the incentives for a loved one to stay home and help out, I think that's the way we have to go. And also with the baby boom aging, there's no way that institutionally we'll be able to deal with the aging population.
So one of the challenges that I understand is the regulations around tax. So I hire somebody, I can pay them, and that there is some tax benefit. But if it's a family member, well, no, now I'm not allowed to hire them under sort of the rules from the CRA. And it's as though those rules get in the way of being able to really live the best possible life at home, especially when we're in our more advanced years.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, right? It's almost this idea that socially, well, if it's a loved one, you should be doing it anyways. Never mind that that loved one has their own family to raise, their own obligations, work and everything. It's a social attitude. It's sort of like, well, why should why should we taxpayers have to pay you to look after a loved one? Not knowing that socially, it's actually much more efficient. Keeping people out of institutions, keeping them in their home is far more efficient and a better way to support our people as they age.
The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. Well, there's a healthcare benefit to that too. So if somebody is staying at home, they're happier. When you're happier, we know your immune system is more resistant to a whole host of different diseases or illnesses. And so therefore, we're keeping you out of or reducing the amount of times that you have to go visit a healthcare provider, giving space to other people who desperately need it.
Yeah, keeping people at home is what people want to do. And, just if you've experienced moving from one home to another, you know how traumatic that is. If you are forced out of your home knowing you're never going back, that can be devastating. And going into a home, no matter how good it is, a lot of people lose interest in life. And so keeping them at home keeps them healthy, keeps them happy as much as possible. Doesn't mean they're not grumpy, but it keeps them much more engaged. And it's just important because of that, what home means to everyone.
So you also are working towards trying to get tax laws around RRSP changed, as I understand, because the way that it is right at the moment, once 71, I think, is the last year that you can contribute. Well, if you're not going to be actually stopping working and you're going to keep going for another 10 or 15 years, well, now you're being penalized for staying working because your tax load changes. How do we go about and encourage those kinds of changes that allow people to continue to earn money and then save for those days when they are going to need that in the future, those funds in the future?
I think the biggest thing is to change the cultural mindset to say, look, when you're at 65 isn't what it is. It isn't today what it was years ago, especially coming out of the industrial age, the manufacturing age, where if you had a life of hard labor or difficult working environment, 65, you're ready to go. But for a lot of people, 65 is, you've still got another generation to go. And so the current model is all built around the idea that we would retire at 65. And so therefore our RSPs have to convert at 71. And so it's all built on an old model, not what the reality is of today.
I was looking at where did this idea of retiring at 65 come up? And the closest I could find was that Bismarck was asked, well, at what age should somebody retire? And he was, I think he was about 70 when he was asked that question. He said, 72. He says, because then you might live another year and you're ready to die. And we've squirreled it back to 65. And then you take a look at what the uproar in France was about going from, 61 back up to 63 or 4. Like, yeah, there is this idea that somehow it is like a sacred trust that you should be allowed to retire.
Yeah, I think, we have to look at with a bigger population and a population that's aging, not only here in Canada, it's aging worldwide. Even in a big place like China,
Yes.
it's now becoming a much older population. We have to change our attitudes first and realize that it's not what it was. 65 today, thanks to medicine has a lot to do with it. That we don't succumb to some of those simple diseases, and just the fact that a lot of work is handled by machines. So we don't that hard physical labor here isn't what it used to be. And a 65-year-old today. Well, I'm 72 and I'm out there playing hockey and I'm pretty good playing defense. I'm not as fast as I used to be, but I'm keeping up to people that are younger than I am because I've lived a life of a white collar work, and so my health is really good.
So let's talk about quality of life from a happiness perspective. It's my understanding that as you start moving beyond 65, you're actually moving into that zone where you can easily be the happiest you've been in your entire life, other than when you were like a little kid and you didn't have anything to worry about.
Yeah, it's, for a lot of people that have had the good fortune and good health, they've seen their children grow up and they've paid off the mortgage. They've probably helped their kids through university or college. Now they're helping with grandchildren, and grandchildren are wonderful, right? It's all the benefits of parenting without the annoyance part, and the grandkids always love you, even in the teenage years. And also you both have the means, for many of us, if you're fortunate, you have the means to really pursue what you want to do on your own time. And you have the benefit of this incredible perspective of, 6.5 decades on the planet and seeing how things work out. And there's a great satisfaction knowing that you know more about the world. You've gained hopefully some kind of wisdom, and it's easier to be at peace with your life and the world.
The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. So one of the other elements, of course, is that we talk about we're being healthier and we're living longer, but even still, there's mitochondrial breakdown in the body. You age. You're going to have ailments. You're going to need prescriptions, and for everybody, it's different. The cost of that medication gets to be very, very high. How can we work towards addressing that for people who do need that support?
I think universal pharmacare is really important because, medicines as you grow older become quite important, even if it's as simple as blood pressure or cholesterol, and it's important that the focus on prevention, is really important. So it's exercise, good food, social interaction, but also making sure that you have access to a family doctor, that you get to see the specialists you need to see when you need to see them. It's like maintenance. You take care of your car, you go in for the regular checks, that car will last a long time.
Well, and as we've discussed, we're talking about people who bring tremendous value to their families, their communities, and the world in which we live. What are a couple of the other areas that CARP is helping people as we're in these different stages of aging. And I think it's important to say, just because you're over 65 doesn't mean that you're the same as everybody else who's over 65, because people within that cohort could easily be 90, and their issues are different than somebody who's 65. So how else is CARP helping people in these stages of our lives?
Well, for instance, in home care, one of our very active chapters in Ottawa is really focused on fall prevention. So that so we're promoting fall prevention, which means being very proactive if you want to remain in your home, to make sure that those little things in your home get taken care of, especially if your eyesight degrades or you have a little mobility issues, that all of a sudden you make sure that there aren't things in your home that can trip you up, because a small trip, you break a bone because you're not quite as elastic as you used to be, and that can set you off on a bad course, if you become bedridden and the like. So fall prevention is a big deal. There's another chapter that we have in Barrie, and they're looking at a different housing model. So for instance, there in that community, there's a lot of interest in the Golden Girls model. That is, that there are predominantly women interested in still living in a house and being an owner of a house, but not a whole house to themselves. So they want to look at joint ownership. So sort of like a strata model within a home with individuals. So they're advocating for changes to municipal laws and to see if they can change the insurance industry's approach to something like that. So a cooperative housing model. So that's simple things. And I think with the housing crisis that we're in the midst of, it's something that's not going to go away anytime soon, and that there are going to be thousands of different solutions to it. And people taking individual initiatives are important. So this Golden Girls model is another one.
So let's say somebody goes, okay, I've identified a problem and I think I've got a solution, but I keep running into barriers. How do you help them as an association, as of retired persons, navigate their way through what can be complex regulatory environments?
Well, we have the advantage of having 23 chapters across the country, from Newfoundland, St. John's, and to Victoria and Nanaimo, and many places in between. And so these chapters are volunteer chapters that we support financially and with mailing lists and sponsorships. And they, on one hand, support and provide consensus on our national advocacy priorities. And on the other hand, we enable these chapters to pursue priorities that are specific to their own community. So for instance, some provinces are still advocating that provincial governments have a seniors advocate. In some provinces, like British Columbia, we have a seniors advocate, but now we're advocating that that individual shouldn't be reporting through the Ministry of Health, which is really big, but rather become an officer of Parliament and report directly to Parliament. And so through our chapters, we're able to deal with very specific issues. It could be municipal, regional, or even provincial, at the same time that we at national deal with the big Canada-wide advocacy priorities.
So just to wrap up here, how can people get in touch with you or the organization to find out, where those, areas of assistance may lie? Well,
if you want to join the community and discover the benefits, you go to carp.ca. It's
CARP.
CARP, and membership is $20, $30 if you want the magazine as well, and just the benefits alone pay for themselves almost instantly.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for taking the time today to share, what it is that CARP's doing, but also to address so many of these issues that are related to seniors.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.